and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about a proposal, two proposals issued by the AICPA to address changes in the definition of or the concept of materiality. So let's dive on in. So they're issuing two proposals in one proposal. One is a proposed SAS and one is a proposed SSAE. They have the same name and they address the same issue. It's just making sure that they're brought through both sections. So obviously the SAS and the SSAE stand on their own. So for the audit standards, it is an amendment to the description of the concept of materiality, issued June 5th. Comments are due August 5th. So we are going to be looking at that concept of materiality. The proposed SAS looks very similar. So amendment to the description of the concept of materiality, issued June 5th. Comments are due by August 5th. So they were issued together. However, they do update the SASs and then the attestation standards separately. So a little bit of background here. We've kind of gone back and forth in this, and I think this is just part of trying to figure out to what extent convergence is helpful and where do we really not have the ability to converge. So when we look at the definition of materiality right now, we have converged it with the International Accounting Standards Board and the IAASB. So they are converged with the international definition. And this was part of the entire concept why we did the clarity standards, to be converged whenever possible with the international standards. And so ASB did converge the definition of materiality. However, there's been a lot of changes happening. In fact, materiality has been impacted also by FASB. So if you remember last year, FASB also updated their concept statement, and that concept statement updated materiality to conform with the US standard setters. So in the United States, the Supreme Court has ruled the definition of materiality. So the definition used by the PCAOB and the SEC, and both FASB and the ASB at one point had decided to converge with the international standard setters. But in reality, if you're going to be sued in the United States, it's the Supreme Court who's going to have a say over this, private company or public company. And so back in 2018, FASB amended their standard to align with the US judicial system and other US standard setters. And that kind of made the ASB take a look to see, well, should they do the same thing? So it's actually a Supreme Court ruling. It made it all the way to the Supreme Court, where this is TSC Industries versus Northway. And they opine that an omitted fact is material if there is a substantial likelihood that a reasonable shareholder would consider it important in deciding how to vote. All right, so we can see that concept of a substantial likelihood and a reasonable shareholder. That's going to come forward as we look at definitions. So this proposal is looking to align the concepts of materiality in the professional standards, the AICPA's Statement of Auditing Standards, and the SSAE's, the attestation standards, with the definition of materiality used by everyone else. So PCAOB, SEC, FASB, and the US judicial system. So it's not like it's going to be a brand new thing. It's not like completely changing it. In fact, it's really, when you look at them, the current versus the proposal, it's hard to tell the difference. So the current definition is misstatements, including omissions, are considered to be material if, individually or in the aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence economic decisions of users that are taken based on the financial statements. So when we see here, we have a could reasonably be expected to, but it's that could that really is the problem. The proposal is going to say misstatements, including omissions, so same start, are considered material if there is, and here's those terms from the Supreme Court decision, there is a substantial likelihood that individually or in the aggregate, they would influence the judgment of, and we're going to change this to a reasonable user, because again, when we're looking at public company versus private company, made based on the financial statements. So influence the judgment of a reasonable user, and it would be a would, right? So they would influence the judgment of a reasonable user versus they could reasonably. Now, do we expect a huge change in practice? Probably not. But it's probably better for us to be consistent within the United States, given that that's our jurisdiction when we come to things like lawsuits. And so they decided it was probably in the best interest of everyone to sort of work on that convergence project so US standards would all be consistent. So as I mentioned, the primary difference about whether a misstatement would or could implement or affect or expect to influence. And so that's really what drives those differences. And they aren't proposing this too far down the road. If you remember, we also have the auditor's report coming up, very similar in terms of the effective date for audits of financial statements for periods ending on or after December 15, 2020, which would be aligned with the auditor's report, but also because of the attestation standards for practitioner's report dated on or after December 15, 2020. So just an important thing to be aware of materiality getting a look at. There are a lot of projects that the ASB is looking at, and this one was an important one to bring us all back into alignment. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you are interested in commenting and you either agree or disagree, both are welcome. You can comment to the ASB by August. All right, with that, that's a wrap for today's Genuine Learning blog. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope to see you on a future vlog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.